Maybe. Okay, there we are. All right. Thank you for joining us, everybody. We are really, really excited. I am really, really excited, if you can't tell, to have my dear friend, Kate Dixon, here. And she worked with us, with our sweet little girl, who's now 10, when she was a newbie. We were just talking about that in the early intervention program when we lived in Colorado. So Kate was one of our early intervention providers in Colorado, and she is absolutely fabulous. I am going to read her bio and then turn the time over to her. Kate actually began her career as a teacher in Australia, and she went on to complete a postgraduate degree in the area of hearing loss. And she joined, I don't know how do you say this, Kate?
Tara Lee
Early Intervention Program in Victoria, Australia, where she worked with families of children with hearing loss in both therapeutic and educational settings. In addition to the direct service to families, she was involved in professional training, transition services, and the development and deployment of telehealth services to people in regional areas of Victoria, Australia. Kate moved to the USA in 2003 and has worked in Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado, providing individual education and therapy to families with children with hearing loss, age 0 to 6 years. Her area of specialism in these roles was in the rehabilitation of children with cochlear implants. And this is how come we got to work with Kate, and our little one was in 2007. Was that when we started working with you, Kate?
Yeah, probably. I've lost track of the years.
I believe it's in 2007. Kate develops, oh, sorry, I lost my spot. Where are you? Kate develops and delivers training programs to parents and professionals and continues to provide professional development training, mentoring, and coaching to school district staff and evidence-based instructional practice. All of these roles have provided Kate opportunities to work across many cultures and systems, developing skills to provide appropriate support and programming to meet the needs of both professionals working in the field and the families and children with hearing loss. So without further ado, Kate, I'm going to turn the time over to you and mute myself.
Okay. And I'm going to now try and share a screen. So that's going to be the next exciting thing, is that I'll get this presentation up and then oh, hang on, that didn't work. And I've got to do it. I haven't done a share screen on this very often with PowerPoint, so I'm just learning that part of it. So Kate spoke to me about whether I'd be prepared to come and share with you, and of course, you know, I'll do anything Katie asks me to do. She's pretty persuasive, except for move to Utah again. She has tried a couple of times, but when she asked me to talk about, I guess, sort of the way I work with young children and their families, as you heard, I have great interest in the development of listening and spoken language, but I am fully committed to the development of language and communication, whatever that might be, for children with hearing loss, and ways that we can promote that make it easy for families to do. So I'm going to try and fit all of this into 30 minutes. And Katie, you just kind of wave and say stop, because I can't see the clock from where I'm sitting at the moment. So I'm just going to go over a little bit about how my children communicate, so we just have a bit of a foundation, and then I'm going to sort of move into some of the practical things that you can do for developing communication. So we know that before their first birthday, and with this I'm talking about typical children, or children that have amplification, or children who are exposed to sign language. So before their first birthday, babies can understand as many as 50 words and be quite sophisticated communicators. And we have to think about, how does this actually happen? When I work with families, one of the things that always comes up is they want the first word. They're keen to hear that first word, to know that their child is going to be able to communicate with them. But we always look at it and say, well, in the beginning there was the word, but it really comes after so much that children have to learn. That's social intention, babbling, gesture, joint attention, and so on. There are so many things that children are having to develop prior to that first utterance or that first sign that they're going to use to communicate with you. So when we're looking at language learning, it starts with attunement. And what that means is that's the ability of a child and a parent or a mother or father to tune in and understand the emotional needs and the moods of another person and be able to respond to each other in those emotional states. And you can see in this photo that there's really lovely attunement between mother and daughter. They're engaged with good eye contact, they're happy, they're sharing that moment. So we're looking at attunement. And attunement comes when we're really engaging with our children all the time in their life at these critical times. I'm going to do my little soapbox here at the moment, because attunement cannot be learned from a screen. And it's one of the things that is a big impact for our kids, not just kids with hearing loss, but kids in general. I think that so much of their time now is attached to screens. So we need to really think about the access to screens and attunement. I'll get off my soapbox. I always have to put in my little bit. So when we're looking at communicating with babies, we start with things like eye contact, taking turns, following the baby's lead, using baby talk, copying, and we do most of these things fairly naturally. Whenever a person sees a baby, they talk in a way that is appropriate to a baby. We don't talk to a baby like we would talk to our friends. And we have these skills, and we have those things because that's what makes a baby want to engage with us. And we're building these things all the time. We're fostering the development of these things. When we start communicating with bigger babies, we're starting to look at babble and shaping babble into words, but we're still using joint attention, and we're also using joint intention. So we have the joint attention where we're concentrating on the same thing, but joint intention means we're communicating. We have the same intent about that thing. We keep our language simple. And then moving on to our growing child, we have words and word approximations, sentences and phrases, and obviously the things what we're looking for is that conversational competence, the ability to be able to share a meaningful interaction with the people that are around them. The sharing of attention is the sharing of a thought. And again, you can see in this photo that this baby is really engaged in the book. The mother is engaged with the book, and they're sharing a communicative attempt of engaging and enjoying in the book. And we're wanting to develop these things. We're really wanting to look at this joint attention. And that is where we're both interested in the same object, we're both looking at the same object, and we understand that each of us is looking at that object. So we're working on that all the time with young babies and young children, because that's where we're going to become most effective in developing communication skills, regardless of modality. So why do we communicate? And if you were here in person, I would get you to tell me the reasons we communicate. But we communicate to share our thoughts, we communicate to share our needs, our wants and our desires. We're one of the few species that actually use language to communicate. Animals will communicate, but we use language to share many other things. As humans, our language to talk outside of the here and now. We use language to express our thoughts and our ideas. So when you look at traditional language therapy, you often think of when you go off to therapy, you're in an environment that is managed. So it's usually a lovely, quiet environment. There's no distractions. It's acoustically good. Where our therapy is highly diagnostic. It's often adult focused, and motivation is driven by the adult, where they're doing the activity that they want and having the child join them in that. It usually focuses on the what, not the why of language. So we're focusing on the words or the grammar and not why we need to use language. And it's often more clinical and harder to help families to generalise that over into daily life. So when I work with families, I know that it's you guys that make all the difference. It's not about the quantity of time, it's about the quality of time with parents. And we know that in the first 2 years of life, children get the chance to listen to this 8,760 hours. That's engaging with their parents, talking about pooey diapers or eating bananas or falling down and having a boo-boo. All of those things, they're communicating with those families. But if you only are developing your communication language when you're going to speech or in a more therapeutic method, you're only really getting 730 hours of that in that same period of time. And you can see that the impact on their ability to develop mature and confident communicators is going to be greatly impinged. So as professionals, we need to look at ways that we can help families to be developing that communication and language throughout the day and in play and in routines. So I've just got to get my notes, keep my notes to make sure I'm talking about things. So one of the reasons that we're looking at communication is we express our opinions, we express our desires. We all know the 2-year-old that really wants something or doesn't want something. We need to be able to share our thoughts and likes, our dislikes, our ideas and wishes and feelings. And that's what communication is about, not whether they can label or list a whole lot of things. It's whether they're able to communicate these things. And how do children learn language? Well, they learn it from parents and caregivers and the important people in their life. They learn it by hearing words that match what they're thinking. They learn it because it's occurring in naturally occurring daily routines, activities and play. And they learn it when there is a reason for them to communicate. And you can see in this picture that that little kiddo in the buggy there has quite a big thought bubble going on in his head, and I'm sure that you can probably think of all the things that he would like to be saying at that time. And when we lay language over that, we're actually helping to build his language. He's motivated to understand that language. That ice cream is highly motivated. So we want to be able to give words to your child's speech bubble. I often say to parents is when you're looking at your child and you're engaging with your child in whatever activity, whether it be play or a daily routine or getting in the car or going to the shops, is looking at a child and thinking about it as if they had a speech bubble, like they're a cartoon character. What are their thoughts and what are the words that they need to be able to express those thoughts? Because they're going to be the words that are powerful to them and help them to communicate with you. So they might be things like, I like that, come here, or no, 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 or that's mine, or I want it. Those sorts of things. And we need to say them in the way that the child wants to use them, so that we're actually giving language to their thoughts. We're not filling their head with language, we're giving language to match the thoughts that are in their head. So, for the rest of this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can build that into every minute of the day, and play is one of those things. How can we make it easy for you guys? Because I know as a parent, and if you've got more than one child, you're pretty busy. You're running around trying to keep everything done. You're managing your home. You've sometimes got a job. You've got everything going on, and finding the time to actually provide the extra time that you think that your child with hearing loss needs to develop their language, that can be a big pressure on families and cause a lot of stress. So as professionals, we need to help families see that they can be building language just through the little things of the daily life, through the daily routines, through playing with their children, through engaging with their children in the transitions throughout the day. And the reason that that's a really good way to go is routines and play encourage language. We can think of a routine, it's really reliable. If you think about driving your car, driving is a routine. Learning to drive is hard. But how do we learn the routine? And I'm sure when you get in the car now, you don't actually think about all the steps you do. But when you were learning to drive, you had to think of all those steps and all of the language that went with those, from turning the key to starting the car, to putting the car in gear, to putting the accelerator on, to the right amount of acceleration to not stall the car. So there's a lot going on. But pretty much now you don't even think about it, you just do it. Well, when children are learning language, we want that sort of experience for them. We want it to be attached to the routine so the language just becomes second nature. So why do we pick routines? Well, we think about what routines happen in your life every day. Everything that you do with your child is a language learning experience, from the minute they open their eyes in the morning to the minute they go to sleep at night. You're probably now going, oh heck, I'm going to be talking for 24 hours a day, working on language. But the purpose of this is to make it so that language is just part of your daily life, and that you'll really see huge acceleration in your children's communication when it is built into that. And you can see by the pictures here, even things like getting into the car seat is a fantastic routine. Think about the routines that happen in your home. Think about the routines that happen at school or nursery or preschool or kindergarten, and try and think of the little things that happen again and again and again. And the reason we love routines and play so much is it allows us to practice many, many times in a meaningful way, because language is always the same, or pretty much the same. It doesn't have to be exactly word for word, but the words that you use when you give a child a bath, or get them in the car, or do the dishes, or clean their teeth, are going to be similar. The same sorts of vocab, the same sorts of sentence length, the same sorts of activities that you do really provide a great platform for your children to be able to develop that language, because they can start to take part. They feel safe because they understand what's going on and they start to understand that language. So what makes good routines, or good toys, or good play? And these are the three things to keep in mind, is things that have specific steps. So toys and games that have specific things to do that are reliable and repeatable. That often the order is the same. It doesn't have to be the same, but often the order is the same. And it's something that can be repeated over and over and over again. And I know that there are kids out there that will want to play the same toy all the time, or read the same book, or sing the same song till you are going insane thinking, I don't want to read that book again. But the reason your child wants that book is they understand it, they know what it's about, they feel safe and secure, and they're starting to develop that language. And it's funny because I'm quite old, and my mother passed away just recently, and my sister sent me a little package of stuff that my mother had kept. And in amongst that package of stuff was this little book called High Sky, which I remember when I was tiny, my mum reading to me every day. And I wish I had it to show you, because it is sticky taped up all over the place. Obviously, it got read and read and read, because there's not a page that hasn't been stuck in or stuck together. And so it's those things that we have to think about, why we want to include those things and why our kids want to do it. It's because they can be successful, and we want our kids to be successful. So what are some of the routines or play? People routines. So all those social games and things that you play, all those rhymes like round and round the garden like a teddy bear, 1 step, 2 step, tickle you under there. Kids will play that 50 billion million times, because again, it's very reliable. Or those games where dad might lift them up and fly them to the moon, or all of those sorts of interactive people routines where language is peekaboo with a young baby, hide and seek, all those people routines and games. They provide a great opportunity for developing your communication skills in your children, and all other learning skills as well. You have toy routine. And I have some favourite toys. I'm not a big proponent of taking lots of toys to family homes, but I do have some favourite toys that I use, and I'm sure your kids have favourite toys. But again, they'll have their favourite toy, and they love using that because, again, it's reliable. They know the same sorts of words. They know the same sort of thing that's going to happen. Different ages love different sorts of toys. You've got the young kids who love cause and effect toys. You've got the build and bash toys. You've got the puzzle type toys. All of those things. A simple inset puzzle can be something that is not just developing the vocab. So often I'll see those lovely inset puzzles of animals, and we get focused on learning the animals' names. But the actual process of playing with the puzzle and putting them in and turning them around and twisting them, and does it go there? No, it doesn't go there. It goes here. So all of the language of the activity is actually more important than the labelling of things. The blocks that you can see on the screen here, you know, we can get very hung up on counting the numbers or naming the things, but the child might be just as interested in going up, 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 bash, and then cheering and running around and thinking that is the best thing since sliced bread. So think about your toy routines and what your kids really like to do. The daily routines, you know, and they're the things like getting dressed, cleaning your teeth, putting on your shoes, getting in the car. And really a daily routine can be a tiny thing that the kids will pick up on. It might be just packing the bag to go to school, not the whole routine of going to school, or getting in the car, those sorts of things. So thinking about that, they don't require you to have lots of toys. They don't require you to have lots of equipment. And you're doing these things every day anyway. So it's a great way to be able to build language, build learning, build your relationship with your children. Song routines. And I love to sing, and I always say to parents, they don't care if you can sing or not. They don't care if you are tone deaf and you are singing monotone. Your kids will love it if you sing with them. I mean, I think we've all heard the Baby Shark song to death, and everybody can sing that off by heart. But you looked at the phenomenon of learning that language. I work with deaf kids who are 2 who can sing that song, do the actions, know the whole sequence of the song better than I can. And that's what is so great about songs, is they're very repetitive. They're reliable. The melody really helps to support understanding and participation. The melody makes it easier for the brain to hang on to language. Just like if I asked you to tell me the words of a song, that maybe a current song on the radio, if I just said, can you tell me the words, you would struggle to tell me. But if you started to hum it or sing it, or there was a little bit of tune, you'll be able to remember every word, because your brain uses the information of the melody to help you with those words. It's no different for our deaf kids. So sing with your kids. It gives lots of opportunity for participation. You'll start to see even the youngest kid joining in with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and singing the last word on the line or doing the actions. So song routines are really important. So making routines or play language learning opportunities, you may not require any extra time to turn routines into a language learning opportunity, but you will require some extra thought. So I say to families, sit down and think about, what are the routines in your day? How can you make the routines or the play activities that you're doing more of a language learning opportunity? What's the sort of language that you're going to use? What is it going to promote? Will it promote more turn taking? Does the game promote isolated play, or does it promote turn taking? So like stacking blocks, you might think could be something they just do on their own, but we could turn that into a lovely turn taking game where they're taking a turn, you're taking a turn. You've got all of those things. So thinking about all of the games and things we're doing, and what are you promoting? Are you promoting those early language skills, that's turn taking, the joint attention, the early vocalizations that go with it? The other thing I'm going to finish up with is a little sort of acronym, I think is what you call this, to sort of look at how we can make routine language learning opportunities. And we're going to use the acronym of wrap it up. So, and that acronym stands for watchful waiting. Then you're going to react and respond. You're going to maybe adjust what you do, and you're going to promote the spoken language or the language that goes with it. And what that means is watchful waiting gives you an opportunity to notice what your child really enjoys, to notice how he or she wants to communicate about it. It allows you to learn from them what they need from you. Waiting gives your child space and time to understand the routine. So giving the child time when you take your turn to process what you're doing. Your child then has a chance to take the initiative and maybe take the next step on their own. Your child then has time to think about how they need to take that step, and you have time to think about how you're going to support your child's communication. Oops, I went the wrong way. Sorry about that. React. So that's show you're interested. When they're playing with something, be interested. Use body language, use words, use those, oh, wow, oh, cool. Those sorts of hooks that really get the child to go, oh, mum's really interested or dad's really interested. Use really clear and expressive body language that you're interested and you want to know and you want to engage with them. And also respond. Add language related to the routine. So repeat language associated with the routine. So they're our responses. The A is adjust. So it might be that you adjust the routine or the play so that your child can offer something to the communication. You might have a piece of the puzzle missing so that you have to go, uh-oh, where is it? We have to find it. Let's go and find it. So you might use that sabotage to build that into it. You might slow down what you're doing so they have more time to listen and explore. You might leave longer pauses and sabotage, of course. Sabotage is my favourite thing to do because it usually gets the kids to really be involved because they actually think it's pretty silly too if you get it wrong or you've lost something. So it's very motivating for them to do that. And promote. So promote, you need to stay one step ahead of your child. So you need to think, where are they going? So what's the language that I'm going to overlay? What are the things that I'm going to give them that's going to support that play? Looking at where they're looking at next, thinking about where they're going to go next. Use simple and repetitive language with young children or with new listeners or new to language, and add new and interesting words to older children. So that would be using a really different word. Instead of just saying big all the time, use huge or enormous or astronomical, whatever it is that will get them in. So just remember that the people we love to talk to make us feel listened to, they're interesting, and they focus on what we are trying to tell them. And that's how we feel as adults. We've all been places where if the person is looking beyond you or looking at their watch or whatever, we really don't want to communicate with them. And it's the same thing. When our children communicate with us, they need to feel that they're listened to, that they're interesting, and the focus is on them. And another little soapbox, and it's really easy because I often have my mobile phone in my hand. Even having your mobile phone in your hand is an indication of not being focusing on our kids. Children need to know that they are being focused on. And remember who we love to talk to. So people who dominate talk are boring and we quickly switch off. So make sure you don't just dominate the conversation. So let your child have their turn. Remember to be quiet. And I often find that I talk too much, and I sometimes video myself when I'm working with kids just so I can monitor how much I'm talking. So I learn to shut up sometimes. And babies and young children feel the same if we just talk at them. They feel happier about communication when someone is listening to them and talking about the things that they're interested in. So let your child lead the communication, because children who lead get the language they need. Let your child decide what they want to communicate, and then your child will be switched on to communication. And that's all I have. And it looks like I fit it into 30 minutes.
You're amazing, Kate. Thank you. That's wonderful. I love all those examples. And sometimes it is easy to forget. I'll never forget when you came to our house and you're making Play-Doh. Do you remember making Play-Doh? That was a fabulous activity. And I think Bella was only 2 at the time, and you were letting her pour in flour, and my inner is like freaking out, like, don't let her pour flour. That's going to be a mess. But you did that activity with her, and you let her be in charge, and she just loved that. I remember how much our little girls just adored that. So thank you for our time. I appreciate it so much. I will be sharing.
You are welcome.
Page. If you have any other questions that you want to ask, Kate, would you be willing, if somebody texting questions, if I could share them on, would you be willing to answer?
Of course, and I can make the copy of that presentation available to you.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. That would be great. So if somebody wants that, we can share that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're the best.
It's been a pleasure. It feels like old home week.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.